Okay, hello everybody. I want to welcome you to our next installment of our GP speaker series. Today we have with us Zack Etter, who is a licensed therapist and certified mental performance coach. He is the mental health and performance coach at UMass Athletics and the CEO of Holistic Athlete. He works with athletes and coaches at all levels of sport to help individuals and teams perform at their optimal ability. And now Derek is going to give a little story about how we got blessed to have Zack in the fold with us. Derek, can you please introduce yourself? And oh, I forgot to introduce myself, but it's okay. And let everybody know how we got to have Zack with us.
Okay. Hey, how you doing, everybody? Derek Bell, Coach Derek to most, right? Yeah. How I met Zack is was up at a Nike clinic, and at the Nike clinics, there's different at different times. There's different uh coaches and people speaking, and when I saw it on the itinerary, I said, "Oh man, this is absolutely something that I want to check out." And saw Zach's presentation and absolutely fell in love with what it is that he was saying and what it is, how he presented it. And I knew that it was something that I absolutely wanted to bring to my athletes and also wanted to bring it to my parents to have an understanding, for them to get an understanding of how the mental part is so key to their overall performance and them being able to perform at a high level. So I think I reached out to Zach on LinkedIn and kind of stalked him there and left a message there and tried to find something on Instagram, but found a way to get in contact with him. We hooked up, and here we have it. We have Zach in front of us about to really bless us with some really great information. And I hope everybody here really takes heed to what it is that he says and how he's going to bring and present the way that we need to process things and do things, not just from an athletic standpoint, but I believe that a lot of what Zach says are things that we can use in our everyday lives. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just for athletes. So I'll let Zach have the floor.
All right. Thank you. In terms of, Derek and Kimberly, I really appreciate you bringing this to your athletes. When I talk to coaches at these workshops, there's a lot of different options, like you said, on the itinerary, right? We could talk about blitzing and coverage and certain schemes on the field. And at some point, the strategic aspect of the game or the physical aspect of the game doesn't matter if we can't figure out the mental aspect of controlling our emotions and performing under pressure and maintaining our confidence when things don't go our way. So I appreciate, you caring about this stuff and caring that your athletes and parents get educated on it. When I speak to coaches, I say you really have two main roles. One is the development of your athletes as people and players, and two is to win games. And at this point in 2024, investing and talking about and learning about mental health and performance is accomplishing both goals, right? So that's why we're doing this, and that's sort of the background. I will say too, before we get going, if anybody has any questions or wants to interject, this could be more of a discussion. I'm going to kind of talk until I'm interrupted, just so you know I can't see you. I'm just focused on my screen. So just feel free to interrupt and yell something out. Derek, Kimberly, feel free to stop me if somebody wants to ask a question. But we will do a Q&A at the end as well. So there will be some time. Derek, Kimberly, if you guys have some questions that maybe you feel like parents would ask if they were here, some stuff that we can get on the recording, feel free to let me know about that.
Absolutely. Yep.
So again, my name is Zack Etter. I'm a licensed counselor and a certified mental performance consultant through the Association of Applied Sports Psychology. We kind of blend together mental health and performance. I'm going to talk about how those two are a little bit separate. But the one thing that I wanted to acknowledge, the top corners there, my role at UMass on the top right, and then the CEO and mental performance coach at Holistic Athlete on the top left. That company's name, Holistic Athlete, refers to what Derek was talking about, where we're talking about sport performance skills, but really these are life skills that your student athletes can use in the classroom and their social lives and their personal lives once they get a job and graduate. So these are all really life skills that we're using sport as a really safe vehicle to teach them and learn from them, but they could be applicable in all areas of life. And we'll kind of get into what that means moving forward. Okay, so just a little itinerary or agenda for today. We're going to talk about the state of the union for teenagers at the moment. What are we seeing from a mental health standpoint? What are some statistics that we're looking at? And what services are we providing because of those numbers? 3 basic psychological needs. So again, a lot of this is applicable outside of sports. I teach this with coaches as it relates to their student athletes. I teach it to teachers as it relates to kids in the classroom, and parents as it relates to their kids. But if we want to get the best out of someone, if we want them to perform at a high level, there's 3 basic psychological needs that need to be met in order to do that. So we'll get into that. Identifying VBB, those are our values, beliefs, and behaviors. Okay, what do we care about? What do we think? And what do we do? Oftentimes, when we're trying to make plans or we're setting goals and we're talking about behavior change, it feels really overwhelming. I want to show everybody sort of a more simplified process that you could sit down with your kid and do with the 2 of you. Maybe you and your partner can do it. Maybe, coaching staff can do it, right? But identifying the values, beliefs, and behaviors that we want to uphold, and then gaining confidence through perspective. So I am going to go fairly quickly, especially because this is recorded. I want to get as much information out as possible. So I apologize if I'm going fast, but rewind, check it out, email me, reach out, ask questions at the end, and we'll get through this stuff. Okay. So first, this is true for my company, Holistic Athlete, as well, but this is what we do at UMass. It's one-on-one athletic counseling. And by that, I mean, for the mental health counseling piece of things, athletes are different than non-athletes. They just are. There's different things that impact them. It's a high level of commitment. There might be travel, there might be other expenses, time away from friends, time away from academics. So there are some challenges that athletes deal with that the general population doesn't. Mental skills workshops to teach some of the mental skills that we'll go over, team chemistry and development, coaches education program, administration policies that keep mental health in mind, and then research and analysis of new data and information. So this is what my department does at UMass. We started it in the fall of 2022, so we're going into year 3 now, and it's also essentially the blueprint of my company as well. All right, so where does mental performance fit into an athlete's overall performance? Okay, anytime an athlete takes the field, one of 4 things are going to go into whether or not they play well. Okay, the first is the physical performance, the size, strength, and speed of the athlete. We're all really familiar and comfortable talking about this, right? We have the weight room, we have strength and conditioning, we have some off-season programs. We know that people who are bigger, stronger, faster have a better opportunity to be successful. Then there's the tactical side, right? That's the coach's job, but also the athlete's job of understanding the game and executing the game plan. This is the X's and O's and the strategy and how we're going to attack certain opponents offensively, defensively, depending on your sport. So if we have a better understanding of the game and we have a better game plan, we have an opportunity to be successful because of that. The third is the technical, the actual mechanics and technique of playing your position for your sport, right? We do that on the field, on the court, on the ice, whatever your sport is. All right. And it's the work that we do with our coaches and the day-to-day practices throughout our season. Okay. If we could be technically and mechanically sound, we know we have a good opportunity to be successful. And we looked at it like this for a really, really long time. Right. And I want to note what we lack in one area, we can make up for in another. Right. So if you're not as big, strong, and fast as somebody else, but you know exactly what to do and exactly where to go, we can have some success. If you have no idea where to go or what to do, but you're huge and strong and fast, we could have some success. Right. So what we lack in one area, we can make up for in another. And that's true with the mental piece as well. Okay. But the one difference that I want to note is if we have the physical and the tactical and the technical all set, but with the game on the line, when it's really important in big games, under pressure moments, we can't perform, how are we really helping our team? Right? What are we really going to accomplish if we can't do it when it matters most? Okay, so these development of mental skills is meant to complement these other areas and also take our game to the next level, and more importantly, do it when we really need it, when we really need to perform at a high level. Okay? All right, so here's what we're seeing from a mental health standpoint. In 2024, about 50% of teenagers have what would be considered a diagnosable mental health disorder. So we either need to raise the bar in terms of what we're considering a diagnosable disorder, or come to terms with the fact that we're in the middle of essentially what amounts to a mental health crisis at this moment. Okay, we're talking high levels of anxiety, mood disorders, attention deficit disorders, learning disabilities. There's a lot of teenagers that are struggling right now for various reasons. Okay. And athletes are the demographic that is less likely to seek help. Okay. So we have teenagers who are struggling and we're less likely to seek help. Lack of awareness is one of the reasons. That's never a reason at UMass or with any of the schools that I work with. We will not have kids that don't seek help due to lack of awareness. So we talk about it, we normalize it, we do weekly newsletters, we get in front of people as often as possible to normalize the conversation about mental health in athletics. Okay. Stigma, again, that's kind of along the same lines. The more we talk about it, the more normalized we make it, the lower that stigma is. I will say, and we'll talk about social media in a minute, with the rise of social media has come a lot of issues, but the normalization of a lot of things has helped with the stigma. And I think people on social media are talking about mental health more. I think there's more resources available to our teenagers or younger people because of social media. So that is helping a bit with the stigma. And then perceived lack of time. And notice how I didn't say lack of time. I said perceived lack of time, because if your arm was broken, you would have time to go to the hospital and get a cast, right? It's really just a lack of priority. We have the time, we just have to prioritize our mental health. Contributing factors, like I said, technology. If you took two graphs and put them on top of each other, the rise in technology and the decline of mental health are essentially overlapping, especially in this country. Social media, I mean, the comparisons that we make to other people, the time that we spend scrolling, really not good for us. Poor sleep schedule, a lot of the times because of the top two, and video games. Substance abuse to cope with some issues and also creating issues, and then poor coping skills, which we deal with the athletic counseling piece of things. So this is why I do what I do. This is why these programs are created, and these are the focal points of the services that we're trying to provide young athletes as we move forward. All right, so what are those three basic psychological needs? Again, anybody who you want to perform at a high level, feel fulfilled, feel motivated, needs to have these psychological needs met. Okay, the first is autonomy, the freedom of choice, doing things because we want to, not because we have to. As coaches, we've sort of all had that kid on our team who's only there because their parents are making them. At some private schools that I work with, a lot of times, if you want to go to the school, you have to partake in a sport, right? So people who are there because they have to, even if you think about your own life, how often do you really enjoy things that you're forced to do, that you need to do, that you have to do? Right. So developing a sense of autonomy, I encourage coaches and parents to get input from the kids, right? If we have a game plan that the kids don't feel comfortable with, why would we have that game plan, right? The game plan's for them, not for you. Okay. So obviously there's certain things that kids need direction about and kids need to be guided with, but as much as they could have input, it'll increase their sense of autonomy, which will get them more motivated to perform at a high level. The next is competence. We like doing
Hi,
things we feel. Hi,
what are you doing?
what's up?
Oh, go ahead,
No,
keep going.
Okay.
keep going.
The next is competence, right? Long story short, we like doing things that we're good at, right? Or at least doing things that we feel like we're good at. So we talk to coaches and parents about building competence through giving people tasks that they can succeed at, and then upping the bar and upping the threshold of what success looks like. So maybe we start with a drill that the athlete can gain confidence through success and then make it increasingly more difficult. But also sports are hard and not everybody has the same talent level. So we talk about creating a plan for how the athlete's going to get better. Right. So either they feel like I'm really good at this skill, or I have a plan that my coach and I are aware of that I'm going to continue to get feedback from, and an idea of what the next step looks like in my progression as an athlete, as a student, as a person, whatever it is. So we want to increase their sense of competence. They could either do it or they feel confident in their ability to eventually do it with the work that we're asking them to put in. And the last is connection, the need to belong to others, build friendships, feel valued, and feel respected. Okay, so when you think about a team, how do I increase motivation on this team? How do I get my athletes to buy in? We increase their sense of autonomy, competence, and connection. So I'm not saying that there's no space for punishment. I'm not saying that there's no space for rules and consequences. But when you, as a coach, make your kid run, or you, as a parent, tell your kid to go to their room, if we're not increasing their sense of autonomy, competence, and connection to the task or the activity that we're trying to get them to do, then that sense of motivation isn't going to be there long term. They're not going to sustain their will or desire to engage in whatever it is that you're asking them to do. Okay, so as a parent, as a coach, next time you want a behavioral change, next time you want to see your child moving in a different direction, ask yourself, how do I create a sense of autonomy and freedom of choice in what I want them to do? How do I get them to believe in themselves, either in their current ability or in the plan for how they have to get better? And how do I make them connected to other people? These are social people. We're all social people. Our friends and the people that we spend time with can drive us away from desired behaviors or towards them. Okay. So speaking of values, beliefs, and behaviors, okay, I think we talk about goal setting in this way. I think a lot of times what's lost in goal setting is when you sit down and you set a goal with your kid, and those goals are to get straight A's and to make the team and to win championships and to be happy and have a ton of friends. It's like, no kidding, right? We all want those things. If you put 1,000 athletes in a room and ask if they want to win or they want to lose, they're all going to say they want to win. Do you want to get good grades or bad grades? They're all going to say they want good grades. Okay, so the outcome of the goal is fairly obvious. Let's identify the values that we're really striving for, the beliefs that we need to experience in order to get there, and the behaviors that will ultimately get it done. What we value and care about and what we believe is all up here, right? It becomes real when we act on it. Our behaviors is what the outside world actually sees and will affect positive consequences for us or negative consequences. All right, so here's the model. And I won't bore you with the science, but this is called ACT. It's acceptance commitment therapy. Okay, and I'll explain why in a second. So we start with identifying a value. Okay, this is great, but remember, it's not real yet. There's no action. There's no behavior. There's no acknowledgement from the outside world of this value. But if we can hold on to this value and act in a way that's in line with this value, then we can experience some positive benefits. So we want this value to lead to positive behaviors. Okay. This would be great. And this is when most people stop with goal setting. Okay. And here's the issue. We're all human. And I just told you that 50% of teenagers and adolescents struggle with a mental health issue, right? So we have our value, we identify the behaviors, but then we have thoughts and beliefs that are negative, that drive us away from these behaviors. And these negative thoughts lead us to negative behaviors. Here's how this works, right? Once we have these negative thoughts that lead to negative behaviors, these behaviors confirm the negative thoughts, which lead to more negative behaviors, and we get stuck in this loop on this left side of the graph. And we're acting in a way that's not in line with our values, which doesn't feel good, which leads to more negative behaviors. Okay, people spend their whole lives stuck on this left side of the graph. This is what addiction is. This is what codependent relationships are. Okay, this is what not learning from our mistakes looks like. So, just as an example, okay, let's say you value physical health. That's something that's important to you. It's great that it's important, but what do we actually need to do to live out that value? We need to go to the gym. We need to eat right. We need to get sleep. Okay, so we know that. Why don't we do that? If you value physical health and you know what you need to do to uphold that value, what's going on that's leading you away from that? Well, I don't think that I'll be able to do it consistently, and I'm too tired, and we get distracted, and we're on this too much. And there's things that come up that make it difficult to do those behaviors. Once we feel like we can't do it consistently and we make excuses and we're distracted, then we do things like act in a way that's lazy, stay up too late, engage in our vices. Now that we're being lazy, staying up late, and engaging in vices, it confirms the thought that I can't do this consistently. Staying up late leads to being tired. Engaging in vices leads to feeling distracted. And we get stuck on this left side of the graph. Okay. So what acceptance commitment, one more, being a good teammate, great value. We have to check in with people often, be honest and accountable, communicate to other people. Great. If we're doing those things, we could say that we're a good teammate. But the fear of judgment, fear of looking bad, lack of confidence, and fear leads to isolating, withholding information, being quiet and passive. We get the point, right? We have a value that's important to us. We know the behaviors that we want, but in one-on-one counseling, in athletic counseling with athletes, we spend a lot of time focusing on this green box, right? What are the thoughts and feelings that are going to drive us away from these behaviors in the yellow box so that we can never get to this box in the first place? Okay. Once we're in this blue box where we're isolating and being quiet and passive, or we're being lazy and staying up late and engaging in our vices, it's a more difficult road to get back to those positive behaviors. Okay. So what acceptance commitment therapy says is we need to accept the fact that we're human, right? We're going to have thoughts that aren't positive. We're going to have moments where we struggle, right? We're not always going to feel like it. We're not always going to feel at our best. And in moments like that, we have to commit to doing the behaviors that we set forth anyway, regardless of how we feel. Now, cognitive behavioral therapy, which I'll talk about in a second as it relates to confidence, works on this green box, right? How do we manage this fear? How do we increase our confidence? How do we figure out these thoughts and reframe them and challenge them in a way that doesn't lead them to this blue box, right? But either way, whether it's ACT, CBT, the therapy that we do with athletes is trying to prevent this green box from getting up here, right? So that we can have these thoughts, we can have these beliefs and emotions that aren't great and commit to doing the positive behaviors anyway. Any questions so far on the values, beliefs, and behavior stuff? That's a quick 10-minute thing you could do with your kid, right? We sit down, we identify the value, we make a plan for the behaviors, but the real substance conversation is about the thoughts and emotions that are going to get in the way and creating a plan for when we have those thoughts and emotions, right? When I feel lack of confidence, I know who to call, I know what to do, and I'm not going to engage in the negative behaviors, which makes it tough to come back from. Okay. All right.
Zach, I have a question, and sorry
what's
for
up?
interrupting earlier.
Oh, please do.
So, I believe you work with college students. So at that point, they've
Wait,
gone through.
Selma, wait. Hi. Introduce yourself, beautiful person.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, it's okay.
Salman Gawe, I am a parent. My son participates in the Guerrilla Prince program. He's a rising senior at the Taft School in Connecticut. And now I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. So yeah, you I believe the students that you work with are, have gone through puberty. How do you, based on what you just described, which really resonates, think about that in relation to all of the, I'll say, chemical changes that are happening with young athletes, particularly young men who mature at different levels and different speeds when compared to, other genders?
So first of all, just in terms of the clientele and student athletes that I work with, the athletes at UMass are somewhere between 17 and 23 years old. But with my company, Holistic Athlete, the clients range from middle schoolers, high schoolers, college athletes. I wrote a book called My Mental Playbook about incorporating the stuff into youth sports. So there's certainly different levels to it. I think when it comes, speaking about the values and beliefs and behaviors and kind of identifying a plan for those things, I think that it's a way for them to sort of understand simply that their thoughts and emotions drive their behaviors. And that's true when they're 5, that's true when they're 55, right? We act based on how we feel, but we don't need to, right? So for example, if you weren't hungry and you didn't feel like eating, you're physically capable of eating even though you don't want to, right? If it's what's best for you, if it's what's good for you, then we can make that decision. We could drink when we're not thirsty. It's just easier to drink when we're thirsty. It's easier to eat when we're hungry. So if we can get those feelings in line with the behaviors, we're more likely to do them. But if we can't do that and we feel in a certain way and we believe certain things that make it difficult to do the behaviors, we have to acknowledge that and we have to plan for it. So introducing that process into goal setting, I think it makes goal setting a more legitimate process. But if we're not in the process of setting goals, if we're not going to acknowledge the thoughts and beliefs that are going to get in the way of us doing the behaviors that we need to do to accomplish our goals, then I think goal setting is essentially useless. So I guess my answer to your question is I don't see a big difference in terms of the age. Obviously, the language that I use and the approach that I have with different aged athletes is going to be different based on, their training and their education and where they're at in life. Just the simple process of identifying thoughts and beliefs that are going to get in the way of us doing desired behaviors, I think essentially any athlete can understand that.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. So, 4 keys to improving confidence. So again, keeping in mind that this is about mental skills and mental performance, the number one way to improve your confidence is by doing the work, is by preparing to play. But I want to talk about things that are a little less obvious, maybe some mindset changes and perspectives that we can take and some skills that we could take with us to improve our confidence over a long period of time. Okay, so number 1 is defining success with what I call a task orientation. So to me, the definition of confidence is your belief in your ability to be successful. Okay? So if confidence is your belief in your ability to be successful, it begs the question, what are we saying success is? How do we define success? So success to us focuses on behavior, focuses on character and decision-making, things that are in our control. On the opposite side of that, which hurts players' confidence, would be a goal-oriented version of success, where we focus on results, achievement or failure, all or nothing. And we're riding that wave where we're confident when things are going well, and we're not confident when things aren't going well, which really isn't confidence at all. It's sort of just responding to the results in the current situation. So what I mean by this, and there's kind of an added note that having a task orientation insulates athletes from feeling disappointed about their performance, is if we're trying to win, if we're trying to get an A, if we're trying to make the team or get a starting job, there's going to be some doubt. There's going to be moments where we're not sure that we can accomplish that or that we can sustain the level of play that we're playing. In those moments, we want to fall back on the things that are in our control. So maybe you don't feel like you can win, but can you show up on time? Can you give great effort? Can you bounce back after something bad happens? Can you be coachable? Can you ask for help? Can you be a good teammate? The answer to all of that is yes, you could do that every day. If you do all those things, if you show up, give great effort, get better, be coachable, be a great teammate, do we have a good chance of winning? Yeah, we have a chance, like Kimberly said at the beginning, of performing at our optimal level, the best we could possibly play. And then we live with the results. So if my definition of success is winning, getting A's, making the team, starting, which by the way, like there's an opponent that could beat us. There's a coach that needs to make a decision about the starting lineup. There's a teacher that has to give out grades. There's a lot of stuff that's out of our control when we're goal oriented. When we're focused on tasks and character and behavior and decision-making that's in our control, we could be more confident in our process. Okay, so when we define success as essentially just doing a great job with the things that are in our control, we're more likely to get results that we want, but we could fall back on our confidence and our ability to do things that we know that we're able to do regardless of circumstances. Okay, so that's 1. 2 is to change the way that we view failure. We as a society have really messed this up. Our view on failure makes no sense, right? When I think failure, do you think good or bad? Bad. What do we do about things that are bad? We try to avoid it, right? We try to hide from it. We try to do everything that we can to prevent it. Well, what we resist persists. The more you try not to fail, the more anxiety you experience, which hurts your ability to perform. Every single time that an athlete has the opportunity to perform, any play that happens in a game, any moment of opportunity, I tell them you have 2 chances to be successful. The first is executing and playing well. The second is responding well if you don't. Learning from what just happened, applying what you learned, and being better on the other side of it. If you could do either thing, you're going to be successful a lot, right? But we view failure as bad. So again, it's kind of that I either did well or I did poorly, right? I succeeded in that drill or that moment, or I didn't, and my confidence comes and goes. But there's nobody that's ever been really good at something without failing a ton of times to get there. If we don't view failure as the best opportunity to learn, then we're not going to get to our optimal level. We're not going to play to our potential. Okay, so again, this is sort of correlated with how we define success. If you define success as winning or losing and you lose, then you failed, and that's going to feel bad. But if you define success as continued improvement over time and executing the tasks and the behaviors that are in our control, and there's a moment where it doesn't go your way, you could still be successful by learning, applying what you learned, and getting better. So we either succeed or we learn. And those are the two options. And those are both great options if your goal is continued improvement over time, if your goal is task oriented. Okay, so if you have a task oriented goal and mindset, then failure is your best opportunity, potentially your only opportunity to accomplish that goal of improvement. Okay, that's the moment where we could take a look at what we're doing, get some feedback, apply what we learn, and get better on the other end of it. Okay, so when we have a task orientation and we know that failure is a good thing, not a bad thing, we can be more confident in our ability to perform. Number 3 is reduce comparisons. Okay, this is what social media comes into play, technology comes into play. If you're comparing yourself to somebody else with a different set of resources and skill set, different strengths, different weaknesses, it's a completely ridiculous and waste of time comparison, right? No two people are the same. No two situations are the same. But even worse is comparing yourself to some societal norm or expectation of how things should be, how things are supposed to be. Where's the book on that? Like, where does it say you should be playing better? Where does it say you're supposed to be faster or stronger, right? What you really mean is I want to play better. And here's the difference. If a student athlete comes to me and says, I should be playing better than I am, do you think they feel good about themselves? No, they're judging themselves. But more importantly, I should be playing better is not true. There's nowhere that says that. There's no rule that they're violating. There's nothing that we could really do in terms of action items moving forward to deal with that comparison. But if they say, I want to be playing better, great, that's true. They want to be playing better. What's getting in our way? What resources do we have? How much time do we have? What do we need? And we can actually make a plan to improve. This is where TikTok and Instagram and all these things come into play, where they're comparing themselves to this idealized version that people portray on their social media page. It hurts their confidence. It hurts their mental health. It's an unattainable comparison that they're comparing themselves to. All right, let's compare where we're at compared to where we want to go based on the resources and time and ability that we have so that we could play to the best of our potential. All right, not compare ourselves to some fictitious characters that we're following on social media. Not that the people are fake, the content is fake, right? And when you're comparing yourself to something that doesn't exist, you cannot be successful with that approach. All right, so the last is assessing for the accuracy of our thoughts. Long story short, just because you have a thought in your head doesn't mean that it's true, right? Don't believe everything you think. Our thoughts are riddled in bias. I'm a licensed therapist. I am not allowed to be a therapist to my brother, to my best friend, to people who are close to me in my life. The reason for that is because I'm not objective with them. I'm too close to the situation. I know too much information to be able to do my job effectively. You are the closest relationship you will ever have to anybody. You know everything you've ever been through from your lens. You know everything you've ever said, everything that everybody has said to you, right? Our perspective is littered in bias. So when we have a thought about ourselves, oftentimes it's not true. And we have to figure out how to work through that and how to manage that. Okay, but the way that it works is we have perceptions and experiences, right? The way that we perceive the world and the experiences that we have lead to our thoughts and beliefs. Okay, so for example, if you grew up in a home that was kind of pinching pennies together and trying to put food on the table, and that was your experience, your perception of rich people might be pretty negative, right? And you might think that they're the worst and that you hate them and that, you know, you're way different from them, right? If your experience with a coach at a young age is really negative, then your perception of the coach-athlete relationship might be different from somebody who had a better experience, right? And it leads to this belief that I can trust my coach or I can't trust my coach, right? I can talk to my coach about things and our relationship can help me improve, or any interaction that I have with my coach is going to make me feel bad, so I avoid it, right? Our perceptions and experiences lead to these thoughts and beliefs. Then those thoughts and beliefs lead to emotions, which drive our behavior. Okay. So when coaches work with kids, we can't really change their perceptions and experiences. Anyone who tries to bottle up and manage kids' emotions, good luck, right? And we know that those behaviors come from emotions. So the point here that we could really do something about is these thoughts and beliefs, right? How do we challenge our thought process to elicit better emotions, better meaning more helpful, that lead to more positive behaviors? Okay, just because an emotion feels bad doesn't mean it's unhelpful. And just because an emotion feels good doesn't mean that it helps us. Right? But we want to challenge these thoughts and beliefs that are leading to the behaviors that we're trying to change. Okay, so here's how we do it. When you have a thought that doesn't feel good, okay, and again, keeping in mind the topic of this is confidence. All right, so I can't learn the playbook. Is this true? Is this helpful? Is this in my control? For the is this true, I want you to think about that when we talk about this next slide. I'm going to go back to this in a second, okay? But in terms of whether or not thoughts that we're having are true, those biases that we have, those thoughts that we have that are not true are called cognitive distortions. Cognitive meaning thought, distortions meaning they're inaccurate, right? And I'll give you some examples. Magnification. When we hold a magnifying glass up to something, it gets bigger, right? So if we're magnifying a situation, we're taking an outcome and we're making it out to be bigger than it really is, right? A poor interaction with a coach, a friend said something that, we don't like, and we think that they hate us, right? We think that the coach doesn't respect us. Okay, we get a bad grade in a test and we feel like we're not going to be able to accomplish our academic goals. We're not going to be able to go to college, right? We're taking a negative outcome and we're making it out to be bigger than it is. Next, and I'm sorry, just to sort of go back, the experience is getting a bad grade. That happened, okay? And it does happen. But if this thought and belief is magnification and it's distorted by our tendency to magnify situations, then our emotions that we feel, like the fear of not getting into college, being embarrassed, being frustrated, are going to lead to an outburst or behaviors that aren't consistent with reality, right? But if the experience was getting a bad grade and our thoughts and beliefs were, this isn't up to my standards, what can I do to get better? Maybe I could reach out to my teacher for extra help. And I understand that this grade isn't reflective of who I am as a student, and I'm going to have time and the opportunity to get better. Then our emotions are not going to be explosive and our behaviors are going to be more helpful. Okay. So number 2 is catastrophizing, right? Assuming that the worst case scenario is going to happen. So if I don't play well, which is possible, then the coach is going to lose trust in me. Then I won't play. Then my teammates aren't going to think I'm good. And then why am I spending all this time doing this? And we kind of spiral in this worst case outcome where we're emotionally dealing with all of these hypothetical situations that haven't happened yet, right? Life's too difficult to spend our time worried about things that aren't happening. It's difficult enough to deal with the things that are happening, right? We want to live in reality, okay? Third is generalization, the thought that just because something happened one way before means that it'll happen that way again. We do this with relationships a lot, right? Like a friend of mine lied to me, so now I don't trust anybody. We lost to this team last year, so now I'm less confident about playing them this year, right? Every moment, every situation is its own opportunity. It's its own story. And if we generalize, there's no point in thinking about the past if we're not learning from it. Okay, if we're only thinking about the past and it's hurting our confidence and hurting our ability in the present, it's a cognitive distortion. It's not true, it's not helpful, and it's not in our control. Okay, a few more. Magical thinking is sort of just made up stuff that we say to ourselves that increases our anxiety, decreases our confidence, and makes it more difficult to perform. The 2 words or the 2 phrases that I hear the most that I would say are magical thinking are need to and have to, right? We need to win. I have to play well. What does that really mean? Like, are you going to get kicked off the team if you don't? Are your parents going to lock the front door and not let you in? Are we going to get jumped in the parking lot? Like, what's really going to happen if we don't play well? Because when you tell your brain you have to, what you're saying is, I am not going to be okay if I don't. And your brain says, got it, activates your fight or flight system, increases your anxiety, and makes it more difficult to perform. Again, similar to the should and shouldn't, it's important to you. You want to. It matters to you. You're striving to. Those are all true things that don't elicit that panic response. But when we say I need to and I have to, that's not true. We're going to be okay either way. It's not helping you, and we're focused on things that are out of our control. Personalization, making things about us that aren't about us. General rule of thumb, other people's behavior is almost always about them, not about us. Okay. And I think we have the tendency to see things through our lens, which is fair. We only live one life and we think, and we're in the body and mind that we are, right? So we do see things from our lens. But when things happen in life, it's usually not about us. People are worried about themselves, not really worried about us too much. And the last is disqualifying the positive. And this has an evolutionary component to it. When our ancestors were trying to survive, if something was unsafe, unfamiliar, uncomfortable, negative, they had to lock in, pay attention, and make a plan for how to work their way through it. Right. So when things are easy or safe or comfortable or familiar, it kind of goes over our head. We're not naturally designed or hardwired to pay attention to those things. The news knows this. This is why the news is always negative. Right? It's an entertainment business designed to make money. If you would watch positive news, they would show you positive news, right? But they know that we're drawn in by negative information. So understanding that just because we're having a bad day, it's not necessarily a bad day. It's that we're focusing on the parts of the day that are negative, right? And that creates this reality of things are bad. So just going back here again, right? Let's say the thought that I have is I can't learn this playbook. Is that true? What's really true is that you haven't been able to learn the playbook yet. That's a real true way to put it. But if we say I can't learn the playbook, is that helping you having this sense of the future where there's no outcome where you learn the playbook?
No.
And no sense of focusing on what's in our control. Adjusting the thought to I haven't been able to learn the playbook yet. Okay, what do I need to do? What help do I need? How long do I have to do it? What hasn't been working? What is working, right? So just an adjustment of that thought allows us to focus on things that are in our control to create a helpful thought. One more example is, let's say that I'm stressed about a test that's coming up in class, and I think that it's important. Is that true? I mean, let's have a realistic scope of how important, right? Like maybe our grades matter to us. Maybe I'm behind in the class and getting a good grade would help with that. I know that as a person and as a student, I'm going to be okay if I don't, and we'll figure it out. But if I'm stressed about a test, what might I do? Study, right? If you have thoughts that are true, then there's going to be things that you can control, and that thought can end up ultimately being helpful. But if our thought is not true, if it's one of these cognitive distortions, then because it's not true, there's nothing that we could do about it, right? And then it won't be helpful. So these are a list of cognitive distortions. I included them in this so that we can send it out and have people challenge it. The next time you're having a negative thought that lowers your confidence, lowers your motivation, makes you feel like you can't do something, challenge it. Am I making this out to be bigger than it is? Worse than it is? Am I making assumptions? Am I making this about me? Am I only focusing on the negative parts of the situation? Am I making unfair comparisons to other things? The best part about this is I'm not asking kids to make things up in order to feel better. I'm asking them to stop making things up in order to feel better. Reality feels better than this made up, distorted thought and belief system that's leading us to not feel great about our ability. Any thoughts on this? Any
Zack,
questions?
what's the difference between cognitive distortion and cognitive dissonance?
So a cognitive distortion is a thought that we have that's not true, right? That's essentially, or a belief that we have that's not true. Cognitive dissonance, going back to this, is when we have behaviors that are not in line with our values, we're going to feel bad about that, right? So if being an honest person is a value of ours, and we know that being honest means telling the truth and doing things the right way, but we're afraid that we're going to fail a test, so we cheat on the test. Cheating on the test is a behavior that's not in line with your value, and you're going to feel bad about it. And those negative thoughts and feelings of feeling bad in this cognitive dissonance phase lead to more negative behaviors, like drinking or like getting involved with people that we shouldn't be involved with, which leads to more of that, right? So the cognitive distortions are beliefs and thoughts that we have that aren't true, that are maybe biased, maybe inaccurate for various reasons, that lead to emotions that don't match reality, right?
Mhm.
Cognitive dissonance is the negative feeling that we experience when our behaviors are not in line with our values.
Understood. Thank you.
Sorry, we'll rip through this. All right. So these are the 4 keys of confidence. Okay. Obviously, preparation and do the work, but define success in a way that's in our control, regardless of our skill or ability level. Let's view failure for what it is. It doesn't have to feel good. I know we're not going to seek it out, but there's value in it. Okay. Reduce comparisons to other people, especially on social media when the image that they're portraying is not accurate anyway. And let's assess for the accuracy of our thoughts so the thoughts that we have can be true, helpful, and in our control. This is my contact information for anybody who wants to reach out. Within this is booking links and opportunities to schedule a time for us to talk. But this is my contact information. We could do a little bit of a Q&A now if anybody has any further questions, but feel free to email me, reach out to on any social media. I know it's a little hypocritical. I'm saying that social media is like a problem, and I got to meet people where they're at. Unfortunately, I would like to not do it at all, but here we are. So here's how to contact me. I appreciate, whether you're here live or watching this over video, investing a little bit of time and learning about mental health and performance. It's really the aspect of performance that'll help us get over the top when it comes to performing at our optimal level. But the mental health aspect of life these days, if we're not investing in it, if we're not paying attention to it, if we're not using our time and our resources to improve our mental health, I think that it's negligent. I think that you're going to experience negative consequences because of it in all those different parts of life. So be holistic, be well-rounded, work on yourself, and let me know if you have any thoughts or questions about any of this.
Wow. Thank you, Zack. That was so very powerful. I do have a question from one of our registrants.
Sure.
The question is, how does a high school athlete transitioning to college athletics maintain the same love and joy of playing the game?
So the question was, how does a high school athlete transitioning to college athletics maintain the same love and joy for the game?
Yes.
Well, I think first of all is identifying what that love and joy is in the first place, right? So figuring out what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying and who we're trying to be. Sports isn't everything about who you are, right? You have other parts of you. You have your personality, you have the people around you, you have academic goals, you have personal goals, you have a family, and you have ultimately a job and a profession that you're going to pursue. So playing sports is great, and it's an opportunity for you to grow and develop into yourself as an athlete and with all of those other areas. So playing college sports, there's an aspect of it that's different than high school sports. Just like playing high school sports, there was an aspect of it that was different than youth sports. It depends what level you're playing at, but it could be more of a job. It could be more of an expectation. There could be more sacrifices and time and energy and effort away from other parts of your life. But at the end of the day, I think we all understand that whether we're playing in the Super Bowl or in a youth flag football game, football is football. At the diamond and the baseball is the diamond. When we're on the court, it's the same rules. It's the same dimensions. It's the same game, right? So what you love about your sport now, you can continue to love it as you go up to the next level. But if you're choosing to play at the next level, then you're choosing to take on some responsibility that could be stressful at times or could be challenging. But it's similar to if you have a job and you get a promotion, that's great. That was your goal. But guess what? More money, more problems, right? With that promotion comes more responsibilities and more work. So it's a reward for the performance that you've put on so far. It's a reward and it's an acknowledgement of your athletic performance and success that you've had on the field. So take that for what it is, embrace the challenge, want to continue to get better. And I'll say this, athletes who are successful in high school but aren't successful on the field in college, it's typically because of the stuff that we're talking about. Right. It's typically because they get challenged, they have those distortions, they lose their confidence, they lose their motivation. Okay. And they're not able to perform at a high level. So continuing to challenge yourself, wanting to be challenged, because that's a way to get better. When you fail, which maybe you're not used to, right? See that as the valuable experiences that it is. Right. And when you feel like you can't and you feel like you don't want to, and you're tired and people are judging you and you're afraid of failure, challenge those thoughts with, is this true? Is this helpful? And is this in my control? So continue to do the things that got you here, but you're going to need to want to do the work, want to get better, and want to be challenged by things that are maybe new to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me see. I think there is somebody in the chat. Hold on, I just closed the chat. We do have somebody who put in the chat, what an informative and thought-provoking presentation, Zack. She appreciates how you spoke about the pitfalls of comparison. She reminds her students and herself that comparison is often the thief of joy.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And we see this with teenagers a lot, and even myself and people my age and older, that like, let's say I go have like a nice night with my friends and we kind of sit around the fire and have a good conversation, and I feel like we had a great night. And then I go home and I look at stories on Snapchat or Instagram or whatever, and people are at a party or people are out or hanging out with groups of people. And now I feel worse about the night that I have in comparison to other people's nights, which is ridiculous, right? Like their night has nothing to do with my night. And I just said that I enjoyed my time before I compared it to other people, right? So our goals, our expectations, and the things that we're trying to do need to be about us, not in relation to other people. We will never be fulfilled. We will never experience true confidence or motivation if we're always comparing where we're at to somebody else.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah. Hey, Zack, I want you to kind of touch on a little bit, because like I said, what you just broke down for us is exactly what it is that I wanted to bring to, like I said, my parents and my student athletes and people who are not even associated with Guerrilla Prince. I wanted people to just have an understanding of what mental health and performance is all about. But I want you to touch on, I guess, the difference between an athlete maybe 20 years ago and the athlete now, and why does the athlete now seem to where it is that so much consumes them, whereas maybe the athlete 25 years ago was able to had the ability to deal with things a little bit better. And I know you touched on it a little bit in terms of saying technology and social media have had a huge hand in that, but can you speak to that just a little bit?
Yeah, I would say that with each generation comes its own challenges, right? So, and a lot of times when it comes to coaches, right, like they're adults coaching kids and they're just part of different generations, right? So this challenge of the older generation and the younger generation trying to understand each other is not new, right? This has been happening forever. So I just want to say, like, while there are challenges and while things are different, it's not like we've never seen this before, right? It's not like we've never dealt with this before in terms of that divide. Today's athletes, and really all of us, are experiencing things that people 20 plus years ago did not experience. We're seeing a significant increase in anxiety, a significant increase in attention and deficit issues, more learning disabilities, kids needing a wider range of ways that information is presented to them, whether that's visual or written or doing it themselves. So if you're a coach and you have your style and way of coaching and you're coaching a team, but only a third of the team learns in the way that you're teaching, then we're going to run into some problems, right? Historically, we see the coach kick the door down and give a rah-rah speech. Well, okay, 65% of your team is now way more anxious than they were before you did that, and it hurts their performance. So the need of the coach to try to get what's best from their athlete on an individual basis, I think, is the biggest challenge right now, where it's rare that you're going to be able to provide a method of teaching or parenting or coaching that just sort of uniformly works for everybody. I think the anxiety and the defensiveness and the maybe poor mindset or lack of discipline, lack of resilience, all those things are fair. I think those are fair criticisms of, athletes right now or kids right now and things that we're seeing. But understanding the mental health landscape and knowing where it's coming from, your kids aren't waking up in the morning and saying like, how do I give my coach a really difficult time today? Right. I think operating under the assumption that everybody is for the most part trying their best, right, and wants the same things, but is having challenges getting there. But between the anxiety, the attention deficit issue, the comparisons, the technology, and the social media, every coach, every interaction that a coach is having with a player, in the player's mind, they're comparing that coach to what they've seen on TV, what they've seen on social media, what their friends are saying for their other coaches, right? We're dealing with this at the University of Massachusetts and every other Division I school in the country, that coaches are worried about coaching their kids too hard because of the transfer portal and people could just leave, right? And you don't have that sustained opportunity to get a lot out of your kids over a long period of time, because when things are difficult, they might just transfer. So I think focusing on the relationship, focusing on getting the values and the beliefs and the behaviors on the same page, so that when there's a challenging moment, when there's an instance that we're not getting along, we know where it's coming from. We know that it's motivated by the same things. Like my coach is yelling at me. If a player comes to me and is like, hey, my coach was on me today and I don't like it. It's like, do you think that your coach was yelling at you because he hates you and wants you to fail, or because he loves you and wants you to succeed? Like, which of those two is more likely? Right. So again, I think a lot of this is the cognitive distortions, the high level of anxiety, the difficulty with attention and deficit issues that we're seeing. And it is a challenge, but it is also a great opportunity to develop a relationship with somebody who you can provide feedback to, right? You can raise their sense of autonomy, competence, and connection with the team. And we could provide an opportunity for them to build a meaningful, trusting a relationship with an adult who could help them in all different aspects of their life. So while there are challenges, there's also equal opportunity, maybe more opportunity even than in the past. And I think I said this to you, Derek, but we met at a Nike clinic. I went to a different Nike clinic in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and I spoke there. And I was speaking before Nick Saban. So I kind of like will take that to my grave, that I kind of like opened up for Nick Saban. And he did a Q&A. Like his whole thing was a Q&A. So he gave kind of like an opening speech and then took questions. And because I was speaking because I had just spoken, I was in the front row. So I raised my hand, he called on me, and I said, you've been coaching for 50, 60 years. And at this point in time, people are talking about mental health a lot, mental performance a lot. You hired a sports psychologist. Like, how's that transition been? How is incorporating mental health 40 plus years into your career? How's that been for you? And he just, no hesitation, said to me, if I was coaching the same defense that I used in 1985, we would go 0-12. Right? We have to make adjustments. We have to make changes based on the people that are in front of us. And the people that are in front of us are anxious, struggling to pay attention, comparing themselves to other people, on their phones all the time, and playing video games all the time. That doesn't mean they don't have redeeming qualities. That doesn't mean there's not a lot of positives. They're better educated. They're better communicators. They have more information about a lot of different things. They have a wealth of information about what we're doing, why we're doing it. They're going to challenge you to be a better coach because they can compare you to a bunch of other stuff that they know, right? So it's not all bad, but those are the challenges. It's the reality of the situation. And the more education and perspective and understanding we have about the people that we're parenting, the people that we're teaching, the people that we're coaching, the better chance we have to help them.
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on there, Zach. What would you say, like, when we first hopped on the Zoom and I told you that this is something I wanted you to do, I was really pressing you to be able to bring the information to help parents that may be struggling with their teenagers, or maybe even college level kids that are making that transition to college and realizing, like, maybe I'm not the man anymore. And of course we know when you get to college, everyone's the man, right? And that's something to deal with. But I want you to touch on letting parents know the importance of this, and why what it is that you provide is something that it can't be skipped or put off.
Yeah. Well, our mindset and our thoughts and beliefs completely dictate our reality, right? And we just said we could eat when we're not hungry, but it'd be a lot easier if we were hungry, right? So when we show up and things are challenging and we think challenging is bad, being tested is bad, other people being better than me is bad, then it's going to feel bad, or we're going to have negative thoughts, and it's going to be really difficult to do the things that we need to do to improve and perform. Doesn't mean we can't, but it's going to be difficult. If we show up and we know that challenges are good because it allows us the opportunity to focus on things that we can improve at, that other people being better than us means that we need to rise to the level of our competition and learn from them. How are they lifting? How are they conditioning? How are they studying? How are they watching film? How are they practicing? What's their effort like? Right? Being surrounded by people who are worse academically, worse athletically, and worse socially would feel better in the short term because you'd be the man, but it would drag you down and it would keep you in the place that you're at or worse. So my point is teaching mindset, challenging negative thoughts, working on your mental health and your perspective and your ability to create a reality that allows you to perform and to enjoy life is all of it. I can't make an argument that anything's more important. So that's the work that we do, and that's what I would suggest investing our time and effort into.
So Zach, maybe piggybacking off that, as a parent, we try to reinforce, right, our value system in our homes and the responsibilities that our children have, whether it's chores or different things that they're supposed to do. Sometimes that can be counterproductive because you have to consistently reinforce that message. And sometimes it feels like it's just not sinking in.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your advice on the reinforcement aspect of all of that? How often, when, how do you kind of assess your child in that moment and whether they're receiving that information?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think as parents, we all do aspects of this just based on our dynamics at home, but it doesn't always sink in, and we're always having to repeat ourselves, and that's when the parent then gets exhausted and we need our own therapy session. So I'll leave it at that.
I mean, I would just go back to these psychological needs, right? Like if you want your kid to clean your room or clean his room and he doesn't want to clean his room, how do we create a sense of autonomy, their belief in their ability to do it, and how do we get the sense of connection, right? So the autonomy piece, yeah, maybe they don't want to clean their room, but maybe there's natural consequences if they don't, right? Like maybe they're not able to get certain things if they don't. Maybe they're not going to be allowed to do the things that they want to do. So how do we get it to be something that benefits them? The competence piece of it, like, do I feel like I have the skills, like both to do the things that I'm being asked to do or the coping skills to manage the fact that I don't want to, right? And then the connection piece of it, like, are we able to do some things together? Is it able to be a moment where we can connect as a family or connect with other people that are important to them if we do these things? I think the behavior change, it's kind of 3 layers, right? The first is motivation. If we're motivated to do something, we're going to do it. That would be great. Okay. That motivation is fleeting. When you think about the most successful people, I wouldn't even say that those successful people are the most motivated. I think they have the best plan for when they're not motivated, right? It's not that their ceiling's high, it's that their floor is high, right? So motivation would be great. That's number 1. Number 2, if we're not motivated, we rely on our discipline, doing things that we don't feel like doing because it's what we do. Right? But if we're not motivated and we don't have the discipline, the safety net, the fallback is accountability, right? Having somebody to hold us accountable, hold our feet to the fire, provide consequences and whatnot for their actions. But I'll say this is like a weird story, but I think it's relevant to what you're asking. I live in an apartment and I had this set of knives that were just like not really working anymore. Like I've just had them for a couple years. So I went out. I'm 32 years old. It's the first time I ever bought knives for the kitchen before, right? So I buy these knives and I bring them home. And the knife that I wanted to use was just like hilariously small, right? Like way too small. I can't even use it. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to have to go buy new ones. But I learned through that experience what size knives I need to buy. If my mom had just told me, if I had called her on the way to the store and told her that I was buying knives, she would probably tell me, make sure you get this size, make sure you get one for this and one for this. And I wouldn't have learned anything. I might have in that day, on that moment, bought the correct knives, but I wouldn't the next time. And I wouldn't the next time. And eventually you have to learn from your own experiences and you have to have natural consequences of your experiences, right? So the next time somebody doesn't do something, like having there be natural consequences instead of imposed consequences is always great. I mean, it's kind of like picking your battles, right? Like if your kid's room's not clean, the biggest issue is that your kid needs to live in a room that's not clean, right? And that's the whole picking the battles part of it, where it's like, I'm going to impose consequences and penalties for things that I'm worried about you if you don't do this right, because we have to kind of two-hand shove them in the right way. But if we can create a sense of them wanting to do it, feeling competent enough to do it, and feeling connected to the task or the thing that we're trying to get them to do, this is the only way to actually generate long-term sustained motivation to do something. Anything
I'll
else?
I'll
Yep.
ask one more at the end, and then I'm done.
Okay.
So what if after all of that, they blame you? How does blame and accountability play into all of this?
Can you give me like an example of blaming?
So in the knives example,
Mhm.
right? Instead of you realizing, oh, I learned something here and I'm now going to go purchase another knife or do more research and make sure I'm prepared for that purchase. What if your reaction was instead, I blame my mom for not telling me to buy the right knife?
Yeah, I mean, that is cognitive distortion that's not helpful and not in my control, right? So I think just the education about what our experiences mean to us, how we learn things, where our motivation comes from, and just the sense that if I tell you how to do things, you will know how to follow instructions. If I allow you to live your life and experience unintended consequences of your actions and learn from them, then you could be independent, right? So the more feedback, in even thinking about this with, coaching Derek, if you tell a kid exactly what to do and where to go, he doesn't know what to do or where to go. He knows how to listen to you tell him where to do and what to go. We're not actually getting any better, right? So I think the explanation of that, right? Like there's some things that just have to get done. And if they don't get done, we got a problem that I'm just going to tell you what to do. And by the way, it would be received better if I tell them why, right? I'm not just telling you what to do. I'm telling you why, right? That your room being clean would be better for your mental health, right? You could get more done. You could be organized, and we have the value, again, connecting the behavior of cleaning in the room with the value of what? If they don't understand the value, they're unlikely to do the behavior. And then when they do things that are not in line with that value, they won't feel the cognitive dissonance because it wasn't connected to a value in the first place, right? So trying to connect the behaviors to the value that you're trying to instill will at least make them feel bad when they don't do it, because that's when the cognitive dissonance comes into play. But again, instruction, telling people what to do, pushing them in the right direction doesn't teach them how to be independent. It doesn't really teach them how to do the things that we want them to do. If you want your kid to clean the room and you don't really care about the value and you don't really care if they learn anything, but you just need that done, then provide consequences if they don't. That's fine. But just understand it's not increasing their motivation and it's not increasing their independence when we do that.
Mic drop. Wow, thank you. I mean, you got me over here taking very copious notes. So
Good.
thank you for that. Too bad my children are damn near grown. So got to figure out, maybe with their kids, we'll figure out how to work this in. Does anybody else have any other questions? Or any comments or anything?
Any questions? Any comments? I mean, I think Zack, man, once again, this is exactly why. Once I saw the presentation, I knew that you would, put it out the park with a presentation. So, once again, I'm thanking you. Me and Kim are thanking you for providing us, with the super dope presentation, man. Thank you.
No problem. Absolutely.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Okay, great. Well, with that, I am going to bid everybody a good night. Thank you again, Zack. And just keep an eye out, everybody, for our next installment of our speaker series. I will work very diligently to get this recording out to all of you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Zack.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Right.
Good night.
Right.